to Wits Business School. We are thrilled to be hosting one of our events in our Courageous Conversation series. I would like to personally welcome the Anglican Archbishop of Southern Africa, Thabo Makgoba, and our distinguished panel of South Africa's leading religious leaders.
When a nation has the national pride of being a we culture, everyone feels a sense of responsibility for the collective success of the nation. I believe that esteemed religious leaders sitting here tonight are the architects of that plan, that goal, that destiny.
We're going to start off in alphabetical order with Moulana Ebrahim Bham, who, in short, is representing the Muslim religion.
South Africa is a remarkable case of tolerance, especially when one considers that we went through what we went through. And our part of tolerance would be that each and every person has the right to hold his personal belief. However, we do believe in the manifestation of those beliefs. One has to take into account sensitivities of others, something that even our constitution has taken into account.
I'll be speaking from the Baha'i perspective, and I'll make it clear when it's my own personal view. Moulana mentioned the importance of embracing diversity. In fact, I don't like this word called tolerance, because in my head it says, yeah, you're different or you do things differently, and I tolerate it because there's nothing I can do about it. But I think once we take the time to actually take it a step further and understand the diversity that exists within our society, we're then able to see the beauty in that which is different. And then you're able to love and honor and take it way beyond just tolerance.
Kobus is next. He represents the Interfaith Panel.
One of the most important starting points is to educate a society about morals. Moral formation is a very complicated science. And I think the challenge is on the society and the educators in the society to take up this challenge and begin a process of moral formation that would lead to a society becoming more tolerant. There's not one religion in this country, at least, who does not acknowledge the God-given dignity of every person. And the key thing for good communication, the German philosopher Jürgen Habermas said, is that all communication then with one another and interaction with one another should be ruler-free or power-free communication and total openness to one another.
Representing the Jewish faith now is Rabbi David Kacev.
And he comes to the conclusion that, in fact, social capital does exist. It exists in the form of religion, in churches, synagogues, places of worship that bring people together in a shared belonging and a mutual responsibility. And so he comes to the conclusion that religion creates community, community creates altruism, altruism turns us away from ourselves to focus on a common good. And I'd say it's because it grapples, whichever religion grapples with three questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And how shall I live? We should push our people beyond this to see godliness in each and every person. Religion challenges us to be courageous, overcome ourselves, and become heroes. Heroes don't succumb to their base traits and what comes easily. Heroes are people who do things that surprise us. Thank you.
Reverend Senamo Molisiwa represents the African independent churches.
In South Africa, we really claim to be a peaceful society, a society that claims human rights, claims social justice, claims almost, all the good things that goes with Ubuntu, but do we practice that? That's the question.
What do you believe would happen if we all believed that there's no Allah, no Christian God, no Jewish Yahweh? Nice. Who wants to pick it up?
I was going to pick it up in my second question. That's the John Lennon Imagine. And I'm afraid that We've seen that numerous times throughout history, from Nimrod's time to Stalin to Mao to Pol Pot. A world that has no religion, no boundaries, no borders, no God, just is replaced with something else, and that is where everybody should think the same way. And we've seen the results of that, of the loss of many millions of lives, I would say.
If you look at the last century, the greatest loss of life had occurred in the time of World War II. It has never been because of religion, it has been because of politics.
When people start talking to each other, misconceptions are eradicated and better friendships are forged. And so, practicing all these efforts, the world will be at peace.
We confuse religion and people who follow religion. And so ultimately what we are all here on earth is people who follow religion, and we have no judgment on what other people do, and that needs to be left up to God. So treating another person with dignity and kindness, that is your duty as a human being who believes in God anyway. So whether or not they are criminals or they are gays or lesbian, that's not your judgment to make.
How do we teach the society about moral values if we've abolished these values from the academic curriculum? Nice question, thanks. And in fact, they have been exceptional tonight.
They don't have to be abolished. First of all, at a school level from a very young age, we all know Robert Fulgham's book, Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. All research shows that that's true. If you want children who are going to collaborate, who are going to learn to be with others, it all starts at the preschool. That's where it starts, and it has to move all the way through.
And I would urge that the religions and the religious communities and embark on programs helping mum and dad, or single mom or single dad, or granny to teach the child.
So blaming religion for violence is therefore not the full story. Nationalism, secularism, various other isms, and I don't need to go into details. Many people would look at contemporary history and concur with me, have led to violence and greater loss of life in various parts of the world. It is clear from my reading of scriptures, such as the Holy Quran, that the ordinance and the instructions appeal to believers towards reconciliation and peace. وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فَاجْنَحْ لَهَا. If anyone shows any inclination towards peace, you should always reciprocate, says the Holy Quran. It becomes so apparent to me that the objectives of my religion is to establish order and justice and stay away from corruption, oppression, and injustice. Where justice has been denied, religion asks the believer to fight for his or her rights. Something that not only religion, but even the United Nations has included that as a fundamental right of human beings. So what is preferred, however, even if this is the case, is change that can be achieved with civility, dialogue, negotiations, the way we have seen in South Africa.
You know, when talking to this, it's important to make the distinction between true religion and what people have made of religion. You know, there's religion as per the scriptures, and there's religion as the way that we actually practice it, the way we interpret it, and the way we carry it out. And in many instances, there's a lot of difference between those two. In fact, what the Baha'i faith says is that if a religion does not bring about love and unity, it's better to do without religion, because that's not why religion was created by God.
I think for sure religion can be the pretext to violence. The number of household violences in this country is about 3 times higher than anywhere else on earth. And this country is a country that on census, more than 80% of people would say, I am religious. And the reason is how the religious texts and the role of men and women and households are being interpreted and dealt with. Where the Dutch Reformed Church, in its theology, in the time of apartheid, sanctioned divide between people, sanctioned differences on the basis of what we thought the Bible said. We did not listen to the ecumenical voices. We did not listen to the cries of the people in this country. And you will know the result. You will know the violence. that flowed out of that. We've repented time and again. From our side, we said, never ever, over our dead body will we allow that to happen. And that's why we are angry at any form of violence being based on some kind of interpretation of either the Quran or the Bible or what other holy text there may be.
If there's a belief that in a God that only wants one form of behavior, one form of belief, in fact, or one form of interpretation, and that comes together with somebody who has a measure of power, bring those two things together, and one sees an incredible amount of violence. We've seen it throughout the ages. We know the futility of violence. It achieves nothing. Religion should be about goodness, should only be about peace, optimism, and hope. And that requires a belief in a universal God. A belief in a universal God means anyone can practice their particular religion. In practicing it, it's one of the avenues of coming closer to God. Finally, to bring peace, as King David said in Psalms, one has to not only want peace, one has to pursue it. Peace doesn't just happen. You have to make an incredible effort. And that's what we are required to do as religious leaders.
My response to this is a big no. It should not be pretext to violence. However, in a society like ours, where you really find diversity as a norm, we sometimes must be careful that it can work against us if we don't get to know one another. The people are not really taught or trained about the awareness of loving one another. It is a process that we need to engage with. Looking at one another and hoping that the religion would not be the cause for violence is really going to take our country into darkness.
The first one is, why do self-professed followers of Islam shout Allah Akbar when they behead Christians or Shiites?
And my answer to that, very short and sweet, would be that people who do that are no more representative of Islam than what the Lord Resistance Army is representative of Christianity, or Baruch Goldstein, for that matter, is representative of Judaism.
It's only when there's a belief that there is only one way, one format, I'm the way, I'm the truth, no one can come to the Lord other than through me, if that's interpreted that way, that there is only one way, then it would lead to a feeling of dominance or condescending or a need to go and save somebody else. Whereas if a religion believes in a universal God, people can follow different parts of their religion, different religions, and still reach the same end goal.
It's also a question of interpretation, I think, that leads to such beliefs. But anyway, in the Baha'i faith, the Baha'is believe that all religions are from God, and hence the fact that we all come from different religions should not be a cause of division. The fact that we're all going to one place in the end should be a reason for us to actually embrace each other. So I don't think it's fair to say, it's correct, in fact, to say all religions, but I guess that's probably the more dominant religions amongst us that would have such interpretations.
Out of the religions that do believe in a missionary approach would be Islam and Christianity. And no one can deny that particular aspect. Having said that, does it mean that we deny other people the right with regard to following what they believe to be correct, while also having a great passion to be able to share what we believe to be truth? And the Quran is very clear with regard to that. La ikraha fi din, there is no coercion in religion. Another place in the Holy Quran, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَجَعَلَ النَّاسَ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. Had the Almighty will, He would have brought each and every one upon one system of belief. But the Almighty did not do so.
Well, in my religion, we know no dominance against another religion, except, of course, by numbers. We often say that the religion should be the voice of the voiceless. But once the voiceless is not articulating itself, it becomes very difficult for it to begin to look at the neighbor and begin to love thy neighbor.
There was and will be instances where people intimidate, force, manipulate people from the vision that they think they are witnesses for Christ. Our mission approach is an approach of sharing the love of Christ.
We do believe that ISIS is very clearly a distortion of the Islamic faith. You cannot take away the context of what is actually happening in any region. While we do condemn these particular aspects, I think we also have to take into account the context in which these things are happening. And if I would be more provocative, I would even go on to say that George Bush used the word crusades when he came into Iraq on a false pretext, and since then over 100,000 people have been killed. Now you don't take that out of context. What do you expect a region to have? What do you expect people to do when they have seen 100,000 people killed in front of them? If there was non-violence was the only way to achieve social justice, why does every country in the world have an army? The Quran has made mention with regard to fighting for justice by saying, وَلَوْلَا دَفُ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْدَهُ بِبَعْدٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْضُ. Had there not been a deterrent against evil, then there would have been corruption in the earth. So we don't make any hypocritical apology in Islam to say that war is a last resort, but it is a resort to fighting for justice.
And today it was just that attempt to ask fresh questions that are contextual, that could actually make South Africa what South Africa is destined to be. The gift of difference. Let's celebrate diversity. Let's respect the pearl, the beauty in each one of us.
A special thanks to the panel for what you've done. This is the first of our series of courageous conversations, and I just want to say how amazingly courageous you were in your responses and honest you were. We spoke to the questions of tolerance and diversity, and not only did you answer the questions, but you actually practiced what you preach.